Hello everyone, welcome to Consciousness 101. This is a channel for the seekers, the mystics, those that are looking for answers, those that want to understand the hidden mysteries behind the curtain, the backstage mysteries. So today's topic is nothing or nothingness. And as you can see in the first cut there, we've got in the beginning there was nothing. I've prepared several cuts that I'll be basically discussing throughout the video. And so, yeah, let's dive into it. You remember there's a scripture from the Bible that says that nothingness, from nothingness or out of nothingness, all things were created, something along those lines. So basically that's the basis of this particular topic for today. And just to bring clarity, so I'm going to quote several sacred texts, if you were to call it that. One of them is the Bible, and I might find myself quoting the Bible quite a lot, but I hope that you'll be able to take it in the context within which I would be making reference to it, instead of taking this as perhaps a Christian channel or a Christian video. This channel and the videos that I make have nothing to do with any particular religion. My focus is on consciousness because it is the time, it is very important that this kind of information becomes accessible to everybody. And most importantly, I really believe that now more than ever, because as the human species, we are at that point in time where we are compelled to actually awake from slumber and look at alternative solutions for our current challenges that we are facing, because the reality is that we have actually explored many avenues. We've explored technology, we've explored psychology, we've explored many things, we've explored religion as well, we've explored science. We have explored many avenues in terms of finding solutions for our current crisis that we are facing as a world, as a species. And we are at that point where we are beginning to see that most of all these avenues actually have not really provided the solution that we are really seeking. And it's not because they are ineffective in themselves. Perhaps our application of them was the one that was rendering those particular avenues ineffective. And hence forth the introduction of this approach, this concept of consciousness. And once again, it is a concept, and concepts themselves can be quite misleading, because then you end up believing that a concept becomes, or a concept is the destination. And concepts are never meant to be destinations. They are meant to be road signs, they are meant to be signposts with which you are able to see the direction, and then you make the journey yourself to your required destination. So one of the most important things that I hope you will be able to take away from these teachings is knowing and understanding the fact that the truth that you seek is you. You are the truth that you seek. And so I know, because this can be quite confusing for many people, because people look at themselves and they just see limitations, You might notice maybe one or two talents that you have, one or two skill sets that you have, or maybe you've got many skill sets. You may even look at your bank account or your physical or financial or social circumstances and look into those as to how you qualify for being the truth which you are looking for. Yet, what we are going to be unpacking throughout this videos that I'll be sharing with you is something entirely different from that, yet something very, very close to home. For example, the minute I say to you, the truth that you seek is you, that is just a paradigm shift, because it causes you to ask a whole lot of questions. It raises eyebrows. Okay, so the biblical, the scriptural texts themselves are very, very valuable, and you can definitely benefit from them. So whatever religious sect, whatever traditional or cultural sect you belong, it's not important for you to, put that aside. All that you are basically required to do now is to adopt a different approach to dissecting the information that you are receiving from the sacred texts. And most importantly, understand that the truth comes from you. Always. The truth comes from you. So whatever it is that we are sharing here with each other, or whatever it is that you are receiving as information from these videos, is essentially coming from you. And especially if it resonates with you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, then this is not for you. And perhaps you are not ready for it now, or perhaps you may never be ready at all. It doesn't really matter. So if this does not speak to you, it's totally fine. But if it speaks to you, remember, it means it is basically confirming something that is already within you. Okay, so let's dive into it. That was a whole 6 minutes of introducing the channel as well as introducing the topic. All right, so let's go into it. So we've got, in the beginning, there was nothing. All right, so what we see here in this next card is that we are looking at waves of energy. Okay, so let's go into the story. So once upon a time, source energy, which is the creator of all that is, the all-permeating and pervasive force, basically was oneness, or is oneness. And in the timelessness of time, because in the dimension where source hails from, there's no time. So the minute I mention words like time and all of those things, just bear with me, because I'm literally giving you information from a dimension which operates under different laws, entirely different laws, different system, different operating methods. Everything is entirely different from the world that we know, which is our physical world, which is the physical dimension. So bear with me if I battle there and there, and if some of the things don't make sense. I appeal to you to look into your inner self, into the depth of who you are for answers, into the depth of who you are for understanding. And some of this information may not be understandable, immediately, but in time, perhaps they may begin to make sense to you. Perhaps, understanding may just appear. Understanding may just dawn on you, So oneness split. And oneness can be sort of, if we were to explain it, and once again, in the same way as the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be explained is not the Tao. already you begin to understand that the minute I explain who source is or what source is, understand that there is a limit. I'm reducing, I'm stripping source of its true essence. So source moves away from being what its purity is. Source loses, not really losing, but that which I'm presenting to you becomes slightly distorted and diluted, and stripped of its true essence and its true nature, its purity and so-called holiness. Okay, so but let's do our best, because ultimately we do want to understand this, and we do want to be able to apply the knowing and understanding into our everyday life, because that's what this is all about. Okay, so source, which is oneness, separated into and once again, source is energy, so it's basically something quite invisible, quite there's just no words to describe it. It's the nothingness, it's the no-thingness. So, and we call it no-thingness because it does not hail from our world, and we can't cook with it, we can't clean with it, we can't buy it or sell it, so we can't touch it, we can't do anything with it. So we call it no-thingness because it has no value to the physical senses, yet in its essence and in its true self, it is the source of the physical world. Yet the physical world does not recognize it. Hence the saying, I believe, from the Bible, which says, the world came from him, which I will say the world came from it, but the world knew it not. Okay, so it's similar. So the world calls it nothing. So each time you see or you hear the word nothing, know that what is being referred to there is source. And then you will begin to understand how that we have underestimated and underesteemed the truth of this source from whence we come. And most importantly, this source, not only is it our creator, but it is who we are. So our undervaluing of the source, we are actually undervaluing ourselves. Can somebody say to me, hi, now I understand why is it that I am so unhappy, or why is it that I feel so worthless? Why is it that I feel so, incompetent or empty or just basically, miserable? It's because you have been misled. You have not understood true value. You have given value to things which do not necessarily deserve the amount of value which you have given them, and you have stripped away value from the very thing that deserves value, and deserves value because that thing is the source of all things. It is the very same thing that when you have given due value to it, everything else is able to fall into its own place. A lot of issues and a lot of challenges that we are facing in this world, we are facing because we have misplaced our priorities. We have taken the source of all life and called it no thing, because it's not physical. It's not appealing to the five senses. And we will go deeper into understanding how that came about and how we can correct it and all of that. But for now, we are going to focus on how source is separated and all of that. So now we understand source is nothing, or is that which we call nothing in our terms and in our language. Okay, so source separated into many energy particles. And the energy particles, we will call them energy particles. I don't know any other way to describe them using words, and I am not a student of physical quantum physics or anything of that nature, and I also prefer not to limit my receptiveness of this knowing, of this understanding of this dimension by placing boxes pertaining to education and all of that. This information comes to me, and when it comes to me, I basically just write down the information that I'm receiving from source. So I do not want to try and qualify it, and yet had I perhaps been a quantum physicist before I encountered this particular dimension, I know very well I would have been able to be able to take all the information that I have learned from quantum physics and apply it to perhaps articulate this information. And also quantum physics would have perhaps made even more sense to me than it would have previously, me being a student without having access to this dimension. So similarly, for example, if you are of any particular tradition, if you are lacking the dimension of consciousness, that tradition essentially becomes, to a certain extent, or to the most part, feels dead. You most of the time, whenever it is where solutions are sought, or when solutions are sought, it really feels like you hit a wall. So please bear with me and bear with the language that I'm using. And ultimately, language is language. And even if I would have been a scholar of any of the spiritual sciences or any of the sciences, I would have still found a bit of limitation in describing this because it's information from another dimension. Okay, so separated into several particles, energy particles, very, very small, so small that there's just no tool in this world to be able to see, hear, or feel or touch those energy particles. And the energy particles are circular in motion, in nature. So they are sort of like circles of many sizes, yes, of many different sizes, yet still in that different dimension, very, very small. So they rotate at a very, very fast speed. So it's like, as I painted here, as I drew here, they're like they're like circles, and there are so many circles within circles, and them being many circles within circles, we also see that, forgive my circles, they're very skew, but imagine perfect circles. So they don't have the beginning of that circle, and they don't have an ending of it. The circles are just there, constantly rotating, and they appear and disappear. So instead of starting from the beginning of the circle and ending and then starting again, no, you just don't know. They're just constantly rotating, and they appear and disappear. So, and I'm talking about things that are happening in that dimension, not even in our dimension. So when they appear and disappear like that, they're basically entering into dimensions, into different dimensions, into, for example, the physical dimension or our type of dimension, or into another dimension. So they disappear and appear, they pop up and disappear like that. So that's basically what happens. And because there's many of the circles, this is basically sort of like how they appear, but there's many of them. But then somehow they're disappearing and appearing, they're popping up and disappearing and popping up and disappearing, popping on and off of the circles. What happens with them is that remember, this is still source, and it's source, the beginning of source separating from itself. So just remember that. So it's very much source, and it still very much carries a lot of source presence. So they're rotating at a very fast speed, and the faster they rotate, there's no tool in the world actually to measure how fast they are rotating, because there's no tool in the world to actually even pick them up. And so they rotate so fast, and then the faster they rotate, the fastest one, or the fastest they find themselves rotating, that's when they actually, when they disappear, they return to source, to the oneness. And the slower they rotate, they pop up into a physical or a dimension which is similar, or which corresponds to its frequency or its rotation speed. Okay, so the slow rotation equals physical manifestation. Fast rotation equals return to source. Okay, and the minute a rotation goes so slow, such that it's getting to a standstill. When it gets to a standstill, the physical object gets to a point of destruction, or it's dissolution. Yes, so the physical object which has been manifested as a result of that energy rotation, then it is dissolved, and then the energy returns to its source, returns to the oneness. Okay, and there's a process of how that return to the oneness takes place, because it's still going to build some kind of momentum, and it's a journey, but that's a story for another day. So basically, these rotating circles themselves are like like a CD, or those records, those circular records, the old ones, the one that where you would play like music on a gramophone with, then you put it on a gramophone and then you play your music with. So they're like that, kind of, if we were to put it that way. But remember, I'm painting a picture here. I'm trying to help you to sort of like get a picture of this dimension, but I'm just using words. I'm using whatever tool that's available to me at my disposal. Okay, so now these records, they carry information within them of all the ideas or states that source has, because the minute source separates into these energy particles, this separation is caused by source envisioning itself to be any particular item, to be any particular thing. So if we were to call it that way, if we were to once again try and back up, we would say once upon a time source was nothingness, like blankness, like the dark of the night, blankness, nothing, and then source, this nothingness is not dead. It's divine intelligence. Yet once again, the intelligence to which we are referring here is a being, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with our world. So there's no means to describe that type of being to which we are referring, and its intelligence, using words or anything of this world. So this nothingness, this being called source, decided to, that's me, decided to have a dream, to dream many dreams, because it can, of being a pen, of being a book, of being a car, of being a human, of being a cow, of being a dog, of being a donkey, of being an alien, of being an earth, of being a planet, of being the sun, of being the moon, of being a star, of being anything that you can imagine, of being a phone, of being anything that exists. Source dreamed of being that. Okay, and then that information of the dream is translated into it's sort of like it brings forth a manifestation of this separation, because source is oneness, and source, by virtue of source dreaming of all these different things, that's the introduction of separateness. And source is endeavoring to experience a different version of itself. So source separates into these energy particles, and the energy particles are carrying this information of this many dreams that source has dreamed or dreamt, and then they remain in this unseen world, in this unmanifested world, until the rotation of this of the circle of the energy circles slows down to the level where it becomes physical. And also, when the physical objects begin to manifest, they manifest at or in a corresponding world that is aligned to that vibrational frequency or that rotation speed. So there's different worlds with different rotation speeds, and different energy circles will pop physical items or physical object into those worlds in accordance with the speed of the speed at which that particular world rotates. All right. Okay. So this process of the object becoming physical and manifesting is not like a pop of a situation. Not at all. It's something that takes years. It's almost like a Big Bang. If we were to call it that. So the Big Bang is something, it's a process that took place over 1 million of years, and not something where snap of a finger, everything is there. No. And it's not something that took 7 days. It's something that took many, many years. So the same way. And also when that happens, when the popping occurs of a physical object coming from the energy circle, what happens is that source has created physical laws pertaining to that particular world, where when the energy circle pops a physical object into that world, that physical object, the process by which that physical object pops up follows the laws of that particular physical world. Okay, so in a world of animals, for example, if source has dreamt of being a chicken, then there'd be a process of eggs hatching and all of that. You get what I'm saying? So basically that's what it's all about. It's a process, and it becomes a natural process when we look at it from our side, and hence it's very easy for us to miss the participation of source, the hand of source in these processes, because we are able to, in our world, measure how or evaluate or see or trace the process from the beginning up until perhaps the end. Okay, the child gets born and the child becomes an old person and then they die. We are able to trace that process, and as a result, we are not able to, and because we are not able to see what happened before the child was conceived and what happens after the child is conceived, and also the other things that are happening behind the scenes throughout this person's life. Because we're not able to do that, we find ourselves really dismissing any participation of source throughout the process. We just overlook it entirely. All right, so that's basically it. So now, these energy circles, do you see how they are? They are literally just popping on and off and on and off, and then when they pop on and off, and they create some kind of waves of some sort. Waves, even like, for example, here, like if this one were to pop off, then we would be seeing sort of like a wave motion of some sort, like going up, going down, because there's motion, there's movement. So this movement creates some kind of this rotations create sort of like a movement that goes like this. Then that's why we refer to them as waves of energy. So these waves of energy, they are made up of all these circles, and the movement of the circles are causing the waves of energy, are causing this picture of a wave of energy. And the waves themselves, the way they are circles. So they are not, because remember I told you it's circles within circles. So let's explore one circle, for example. This circle, okay, so from a distance, it appears to be like a perfect circle like this, right? But and just imagine if it was one circle and it didn't have many circles inside it, okay, just for the sake of this explanation. Okay, so it would appear to be a perfect circle. But if you were to zoom in, you would see that the circle is actually made up of many, many other smaller circles, like this ones, just like this. Okay, so it's many, many other circles here as well. So that now looks like a line, right? But it's not really a line. It's remember, it's invisible things here. It's energy. It's like something that sort of like looks like air, and you can't even paint a picture of it. So yeah, imagine my dilemma right now. So this mini circle, it's made up of many, many, many circles, and they are doing this particular motion. They are causing this particular type of a wavy motion. So if you were to really, really sort of like zoom in, you will see that, okay, so at first stance, you see sort of like a perfect circle. You zoom in a little bit, you see that no, this circle is actually very wavy, and then as you zoom further in, what you come across is this. So then the circle would be made up of a whole lot of many, many circles inside it. So that's the story behind source. So all of these things are records of information. The ones that are causing the popping up of physical events and in circumstances in the world. Yes, source dreamed and imagined itself being many things. Source imagined, visualized itself to be a murderer. Source visualized itself to be anything that exists in the world. Just know that Source visualized itself to be that. Source does not see good and bad and evil and all of those things the way that you see it, or the way that we see it in our world. Source just sees things as visions and dreams and all of that. And okay, so how would it be to be like that? We'll go into that topic another time. Let's move on to the next card because we are totally out of time. So many, many energy circles. We went through that. Invisible, intangible, like air. And it's of space and it's of a different dimension. And yet the dimension is permeating this one. So nothing is no thing. So it means it's no thing. And what is a thing? A thing is something that you can touch. A thing is something that you can conceptualize. Thing is something that is, something that it either has to appeal to your mind or it has to appeal to your physical senses. And unfortunately, this particular dude here, the one that we are referring to, which is Source, does not appeal to any of those. So hence it's called no thing, but it does not mean that is no thing as in it's no thing, because by now we have established that it's not nothing. It's not nothing. Okay, it's not of this world, yet it is in this world. Remember that saying, I'm not of this world, yet I am in this world. Okay, so nothing is source of all things. Nothing is equals to source, and it's equals to God. So beware of the religious connotations pertaining to who God is. Don't limit yourself to the idea of God being an external source, some bearded old man with a fork in his hand, ready to unleash punishment, so angry and jealous, and you ought to always be afraid, and then you've got to do a whole lot of things. There's all these conditions pertaining to how it is that you can attain this person's love. That sounds like a human being to me, a very madman to me. And the source to which we are referring to and the God to which we are referring to has nothing to do with it. It has no human attributes whatsoever. The only human attributes that source has is the ones that we as humans have, because we are ultimately source. And so we are source inhabiting a human being. So when you become a jealous human being and so forth, and an angry person and all of that, that's source being that to you, and you are being that to yourself. But it does not necessarily mean that source in its true essence has those attributes. You are literally playing a role, and you may be playing a role of being a jealous person, but that's not who you are. So we are not compelled to impose this attribute on source and God. So allow yourself to experience a paradigm shift and be a bit more open-minded pertaining to this word God. So the minute I use the word God, don't think of some old man out there living in some invisible world watching over you and trying to punish you at every corner. All right, so nothing equals source, source equals God, God equals you, you equals consciousness, and then source is the creator of all things, the animating force that is source is inseparable from its own creation. See, so if you create a furniture, a wooden furniture, you can put it on the side and that would be fine. That's you and that's the furniture. But when it comes to source, and by source, I mean still our very essence, but that's another topic for another video, and it's coming. Okay, it's going to be the next one after this. So basically after source, so when source creates something, source becomes that thing. Source is inseparable from its creation. When source creates something, source becomes that thing. So there's no situation whereby it's like source would be looking at an external, or I mean a physical object and being like, okay, you physical object, whatever. No, when source looks at a physical object, source is looking at itself. Source is one, and source will never be separated from itself, never. And it has never been separated, and it's incapable of being separated from its objects. Okay, so we will go into that deeper. All right, so energy cycles, they appear and disappear, high-speed rotation. They are like data records of source ideas which remain in the unseen world unless their rotation slows down enough for them to be accessed in the physical world. We went through that. So the faster rotation, the closer the energy to source, the slower the rotation, the further from source. So this is what literally happens. This is why we cannot really value source, because source's presence has become more and more smaller. You know, our recognition of it has become more and more diminished. It hasn't changed. It's still there. You know, like for example, if you are in this kind of dimension here, you're still experiencing a significant amount of source, which is mostly, for example, animals and the mineral world and nature and, you know, the earth and all of that. They are still experiencing a significant amount of source because they don't have a mind that makes them worry about stuff. They haven't yet gotten to that level. So, but we as human beings, we are really here. We are at a point where it's like source does not even exist. Like, hence you'd get questions, does God exist? You know, it's because we are here. When you are here, man, I tell you, you ask those kind of questions because it's like, okay, you are inundated with thoughts, you are inundated with emotions, you are inundated with all physical stimuli. It just, nothing makes sense. It's a mad world, and it just feels like God is so far away. And yeah, so that's why the experience here, it's quite unpleasant. And when you are here, initiate self-destruct has already begun. Hence, a lot of disasters and destruction and all of things, many things happen here, because here the source will pull itself out of the physical, and obviously the process is going to become that one that we look at. Oh, they had an accident. Oh, they got old and died. Oh, they killed them. Oh, that's what's happening there, is that source is pulling itself out of the physical. To the most part, source is just pulling itself out of the physical, because it's saying source wants to return. Source wants to be one with itself. Source does not want to be separated from itself. Source can separate itself into many different versions of itself, but don't get it twisted. Source does not want to be separated from itself. It wants to be in an object and experience being in that object, as that object perhaps, but it wants to know itself in that object. And as long as source does not know itself whilst it's in that object, it's not going to be a pleasant experience for too long, for very long, for that object. And very quickly the trip becomes short, or source just pulls out. And then when source pulls out, then it returns to itself. So we are either going to wake up as a human species and allow source, which is ourselves, to wake up and really experience being in this world and fulfilling our true purpose, which is ourselves as source, coming to actually have this experience as people embodying human vehicles. We are either going to do it fully awake, or else we're going to check out. That's basically what it is. That's where the world has come to now. So more about that in our next videos. Let's just finish off. Okay, so nothing equals source, source equals God, source equals creator, source equals consciousness. Okay, so it's like a blankness, it's like a black blankness, and it's like an audible generator. Like if you were to imagine the sound, it's an inaudible, sorry, this was supposed to be inaudible generator. Okay, so it's overlooked by the physical world, because once again it does not appeal to the physical world, yet it's the creator and generator. And remember, source is you, it's the essence of who you are. So in this world, every single thing that exists is source experiencing itself as that particular thing. But just because you are experiencing like you are playing a particular role does not change the fact that you are still you and you are not the role. Okay, and also, so now the call is for us to remember that we are not the roles that we are playing in this world. We are called to remember who we are, that as much as we are playing the roles, and we may continue to play the roles, but we are not caught up in the roles. We are not lost in the roles. We are aware of who we are as we play the roles. That's basically it. It's the essence of who you are. Okay, so let's meditate. Let's take a deep breath. Deep into the belly. And as you breathe in, feel that spaciousness, that emptiness, that blankness, that nothingness, which is alive and highly vibrant. The source and creation of all things, the space, the blankness, anything that is blank around you, the space between all things, the space which gives life to all that is, the space which is the all-allowing. Breathe it into you and out through your nose and out. Still your mind and focus on the feeling of just experiencing the presence of air, nothingness in your body. Feel the aliveness of every cell in your body, your feet, your arms, your legs. I am Source. I am one with Source. I am Source. Source is no thing. Therefore, I am no thing. I am no thing. That's the truth and the essence of who I am. I may play roles. I may play the role of an employee or an employer. I may play a role of a mother or a father. I may play a role of a brother or a sister. All of that is a role. A lover, a partner, a wife, a husband. It's all a role. But in my true essence, I am no thing. I may play a role of someone important. I may play a role of someone insignificant. But in my true essence, I am no thing. And that's it. Take a deep breath. And you will feel that the presence of this no thingness is not really no thing. It's something. You can feel the vibration within your body. You can feel the vibration within your hands. And you are able to now walk into your roles and play your roles with the awareness of the truth of who you are in your core essence. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please please subscribe to the channel. If there are any questions that you have, I have a book that's coming up that will give you more information pertaining to this world of consciousness. And if you would like to suggest any topics, or if you have any questions, you can do write to us at consciousness and the numbers 101@gmail.com. It's consciousness101@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching. We love you lots. Goodbye.